Hello, this is a presentation for Niall Ferguson's TED Talk called The Six Killer Apps for Prosperity. Ferguson starts talking about the Great Divergence, the term he uses for when the West took predominance over the East in the 1500s. The Great Divergence, he says, happened because of a series of elements that the West had that the East lacked. And he says by the 20th century, despite having only 19% of the population, the West owned two-thirds of its wealth, and by the 1970s, the United States was 20 times richer than China. That, of course, is changing now, but we have to take a look back of what happened, of how the Great Divergence happened, and what elements did it have for it to happen. So Ferguson says that the Great Divergence was, first of all, not caused by geography, and imperialism was not to blame. The Great Divergence happened because of the Age of Reason, ideas, and institutions. The Age of Reason, of course, is about the Renaissance that took place in the 1500s, where people started talking and developing new ideas, new inventions, and everything had to do with theories, with investigation, and many things that the East had, like religion or nature or this reverence to nature, started to lack, and humanity's knowledge became the main thing for innovation. And this was what the West pushed, and that's how they took predominance over the East. For example, he says that ideas and institutions are very powerful for individuals because these help them push themselves to innovate. A clear example is, he says, for when Germany was divided into two countries, East and West. The East had communism, and they created one of the worst brand of cars ever. The West, on the other hand, had capitalism, and they created the Mercedes-Benz, which is one of the best cars. So he says the institutions have to be very strong, and that's happened with strong ideas. He developed a formula called the six killer apps, and these things, these six elements, are the ones that you need to have in order to have success, like the West had for all these years. First of all, he says competition. Competition, he says, is not only between countries but between individuals to develop themselves, to innovate themselves. And that's what happened in the 1500s. In Europe, competition was something that individuals in the West constantly had. They competed with each other, they compete in between their countries. And in the East, in contrast, since everything was owned by the state, there was not this sense of competition. Number two is the scientific revolution, which is one of the most important, because with this, it was the first time that human became predominant over nature. And even if the East had some technology, this technology was always inferior or was dependent over nature. In the West, on the other hand, they started developing things to overcome nature or the environment, to modify their environment. They created railways, they created trains, they created the press. Number three is property rights, which is the law that demands that you own something. For example, in North America, when you work a certain amount of time, you have right to a land. That didn't happen in Latin America, where the land was owned by a little few, which were the wealthiest ones. Number four, also one of the most important, was modern medicine, which of course is the development of better medicines like penicillin. They were discovering better things to attack diseases that in the past were fatal. Number five is the consumer society, to create needs for people to buy, like clothes, a large amount of clothes, technology, something that the East didn't have. And now, for example, Japan is one of the leaders in that fashion, technology, etc. And number six is the work ethic. How do you work? How much hours do you work? How much do you put your effort to create something? The West had that in the 1500s and most of the centuries that have passed until now. But Ferguson asks this question now: who has the work ethic now? And he compares, for example, South Korea, which is now one of the largest economies, Japan, which is one of the largest economies, to Germany, for example. And Japan and South Korea are now becoming more important, more powerful than what Germany had. And now, for example, the US is only 5 times richer than China, and in 2 years it will be 2.5, only 2.5. So by 2016, he esteems China will become a leader economy, a lead economy instead of the U.S., which will come to number two because of the work ethic. The Asians have learned these six apps because he says these apps are open source. They can be learned by anyone. They can be learned by any country, and it's not only Asia that this happens. It's also happening in Latin America. So let's compare some arguments from other panelists at TED. Rosling and Jack agree that the West predominance is coming to an end. They have other approaches than what uh, Ferguson have, but they essentially say that China will become a larger power, that India is becoming a larger power, because the West cannot see that they are not paying attention to these countries. They are not paying attention to these developing countries, and they are just fearful of the Europe economy. Europe and the US are in constant competition, but they cannot see beyond that. Another one, Nie says that cooperation should be the key. Smart power. Nie is a much more conservative man. He says that China is not becoming a world leader so fast than the others are predicted. It will become one, but it will take some time, more time, like until 2050, sorry. And he says that for that to happen, they need to really cooperate. They really need to envision another type of power, not the type of power, the hard power that you have to take it or the other one will take. He says a smart power. A smart power is something where both countries, China and the US, can benefit from, and both can prosper. Friedman, on the other hand, says that is a flat world, that globalization has taken over, that everything is, that there are no barriers anymore, which is a little extreme views, in my opinion, and I agree more with Gemawat, who says that we are not there yet. We still have many barriers that we have to overcome in order to become a fully globalized world, and it's true. So these are the arguments. Comparing the arguments from Ferguson, Ferguson tends to agree more with Rosling and Jack that the East is becoming predominant again. Is becoming predominant, something that didn't happen until at least for 3 centuries. The East is coming back, and the West is failing to see this. The West is failing to see all of this. So final conclusions are that the West predominance is coming to an end, and they should pay attention to Asia and South America. The US and Europe their models are becoming to an end because they are no longer applying. They are no longer applying these methods, these applications to their systems. In contrast, Asia is doing this. Asia is applying this, especially the work ethic. With work ethic, they are achieving much more than what the West is achieving. However, not everything is so strong in Asia. The emerging countries need to still improve in key areas like education, like health. China is such a large country that many cities are prosperous, but many others are very poor. So this kind of inequality needs to be leveled up so they can truly achieve prosperity and they can truly become a world dominant economy. Thank you.